Hey, welcome to the Average Disciple podcast with me, Brian, and Victoria, where we talk about what it means to live life on purpose with intention as average disciples of Jesus. If you haven't done so already, be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at The Average Disciple. Check out our website, theaveragedisciple.com, and while you're there, go ahead and sign up for that newsletter so that you get the latest news, resources, updates on podcast episodes, so on and so forth, and you get that early as well. So today on this episode, what are we talking about, Victoria?
We're talking about our faith stories.
All right. Well, this ought to be good.
Hopefully, fingers crossed.
We'll see.
So today we thought it would be nice to just share a little bit about us, how we're raised, our faith story, how we got into ministry, just so you, the listener, can get to know us more, know where we're coming from.
Can we also talk about long walks on the beach and favorite color? Is that what you want to discuss in this episode? Or
Well, you can share that. You don't like those things.
I don't like those things, actually.
All right. Well, today we thought we'd share just a little bit about ourselves. So
Yeah.
do you want to go first, or you want me to?
You lead the way.
Okay. Well, so let's see. I was raised Lutheran. I was raised Lutheran Missouri Synod. I was baptized, as a baby when I was 1 month old. I was actually not baptized in the LCMS church, in ELCA, Lutheran body. And I think we were at that church maybe till I don't really remember. So I think it was maybe 4.
Okay.
Maybe 5, 3, 4, or 5.
Yeah, that sounds consistent.
And then we switched to Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, which was not unfamiliar to my mom. That's how she was raised. And then I was raised in this tiny Lutheran church, not far from where we live now. And growing up, we did not have a lot of people at our church. It was small. It didn't have a lot of kids in the youth group.
But your church started as a church plant, right?
It was a church plant shortly before.
Which, by the way, that language means a new church, started by a small group of people to hopefully grow and expand. Yeah.
I think it was actually started the year that I was born, and then we joined it when it was 4 or 5 years old.
Okay.
I think I'm remembering right. So,
Gotcha.
I did not grow up with extended family around. My grandparents on either side lived 3.5, 4 hours away. So it was just our immediate family. And so, very much our church family, I always thought of as an extension of our family. Not that we did a lot with them, but and I could tell my parents relied on them, on some of the relationships we had. And yeah, we did a lot. We went to church all the time. We always were in Sunday school. I remember my parents getting involved, my mom in youth ministry. And I didn't really know that large Lutheran churches existed. I had heard, this sounds kind of silly and ridiculous, but I had heard that, there were big churches, but I always
heard rumors of them. That
they were always Baptist churches, a different denomination. But that I did not know that large Lutheran churches existed, because I grew up in Texas, so did Brian, but Lutherans are not as prevalent in Texas as they are in other parts.
Especially not LCMS Lutherans. Yeah. They weren't,
as other parts of the United States. So
other denominations were and still are.
Yeah. We have
by ratio bigger.
We have a lot of Baptist churches, a lot of non-denominational churches. So I remember, I went through what we do in the Lutheran church called confirmation, where you learn all about your faith. We baptize as infants, and then that teaching element comes usually at junior high age. Went through confirmation, and then after that, we actually called a director of Christian education to our church, and so that was, I think she finally came maybe when I was about to start 9th grade or in 9th grade, and I didn't know that people came and worked at the church and did youth ministry. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I just thought that was a volunteer thing, because I'd always see my mom helping with it, and other moms and dads. And anyway, that's kind of where I learned that the Lutheran church was a little bit bigger. And I had some cool opportunities during high school. I got to go to some leadership stuff because my DC saw leadership in me, and she wanted to encourage that. And she actually wanted to encourage me to go into ministry, but I didn't really see that at the time because I danced all growing up. So that was my plan. I was gonna get a scholarship to a college for dance, and I was gonna be a performer. And I just had big plans that did not involve church ministry.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So similarly, I was baptized around a month old. Took many years to finally nail that down, but I finally saw a baptismal certificate. Just funny story on that. Every time I was asked, because we both went to like a Lutheran university, then I went on to seminary. Every time I was asked, I always had to just put a month down, and then finally, and since we've been married, is when
it was in your baby book.
It was in my baby book, but like we didn't find it until after we were married. Anyways, so it's confirmed. I was baptized.
Maybe you just never paid attention to it. Do you think maybe that could have anything?
No, I'm pretty confident they didn't know where it was. Anyways.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
Anyways, so grew up. As far as I knew, I grew up Lutheran Church Missouri Synod.
Yep.
Similar story. Went through confirmation. My church that I grew up in had been around for a little while, and it actually kind of grew and expanded pretty quickly. I think it was a church plant maybe around the same time. But it had grown up, and mostly because of the area that it was in was a growing area. So grew up in a youth group. Also, we had volunteers for a long time. Probably wasn't until middle school, I think, that we had a DCE come in. And they too, actually, one of them said, "Hey, Brian, I really think you should go to this conference." Turns out, Victoria and I, over the years, have discussed this. We were most likely at the same conference.
At the same time.
At the same time, and I had no idea. And the other part of the story is my parents had gotten divorced, and my dad and stepmom lived on the other side of town, near where Victoria lived. Mm-hmm. So they went to the church. They were married by the pastor at Victoria's church.
Yeah.
Because that was their home church for a long time. And so when I would go visit them and we go to church, we went to church together. Now, we did not know that until we were talking about marriage and all those other pieces. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so we were probably in church together growing up and just had no idea.
Maybe.
Yeah. Anyways, growing up 45 minutes away from each other, we didn't know each other really until college. So that conference that I got sent to was really the turning point. Having somebody say, "Brian, I really think you should do this." And actually all my friends, even the adults, the friends' parents and stuff, everybody was like, "Brian, you should really think about ministry. We think you'd really be great at that." And I said at the time, I don't want to be a pastor because pastors are lame. Turns out that's true, by the way. I own that. I remember saying that to somebody, and I was like, "Well, I don't want to be a pastor because pastors are lame." And they're like, "Well, you don't have to be." And I'm like, "No, it's not going to happen. I'll do youth ministry because those guys are cool." And so that's how I made it through high school and why I went to the school that I went to. I went to Concordia University in Austin, Texas. Go Tornadoes, whoosh! And I went there because at the time the director of Christian education program, there were only 3 really good schools in the system that did it. One was in Nebraska, the other one was in Minnesota, and then you had Austin, which was a relatively young program that was really kind of taking off. Well, the other 2 honestly were too cold. I was not going to go to Nebraska, and I was not going to go to Minnesota and freeze, and so Austin was really my choice. California, by the way, has a really great program, but California's too far away. So,
I majored in dance when I first started college, and I went to a university not very far from where my parents lived. It was kind of my backup school. Mm-hmm. I had really been disappointed because the high school I went to, I had been scouted by different universities for dance, and there was a lot of emphasis put on what kind of scholarship you could get into college with your talent. And so I put a lot of emphasis on that, and it was really important to me. And in fact, it was the only thing that was important to me because I thought that I didn't have a lot of worth if I could not secure a college scholarship to dance. So I didn't secure one, and I kind of, I would say I almost gave up. Like, I just settled for the university I went to because it was close to home, and I just didn't really, now looking back on it, I could have applied to different schools, but I guess I know I wasn't sure of myself. And of the talent that I have been given, even though that's what I really want to do, and I had been told I was talented. All growing up, I didn't believe in myself, and I think my teachers tried to point that out as well, that I really needed to want it and believe it. And I think it was just hard because I was putting my worth not in what I should have been putting it in. Yeah. So I went to college, majored in dance. I actually really loved it. I loved my school. I loved the dance department. I made some really good friends. I actually really enjoyed it. But during that time, I went to the local Lutheran church. I wanted to find my own Lutheran church to go to. Again, it was smaller than the one I came from. But they had a college ministry because there were 2 universities. And they asked the college kids if we would mentor children in confirmation, which is, again, that class that you learn all about your faith. So I said yes, and I thought it was so fun. I loved doing it. I loved talking to this girl about faith and like encouraging her and praying with her and praying for her and like giving her a Bible verse. And it was at that moment that I realized, wow, I love this more than dance. And I have never found something in my life that I love more than dance. So I really had a good college experience. I really liked it. I decided to transfer to Concordia University. My parents gave me the option to continue my spring semester where I was at, or to move home, and save money and do community college. So I knew I needed to save money. So I went ahead and moved home. Again, I really liked where I was at, but I just felt God calling me to something bigger than myself. And lo and behold, after I applied to Concordia, I got a scholarship I didn't even know I could get. And it was like, I just remember opening that letter and tears filled my eyes because this thing I had put so much worth in was not what my worth, my identity was in Christ. And I had finally figured that out. And then, I just felt like that was confirmation for me, like, God, like, encouraging me, and here's a scholarship. This is what you always wanted, and now you have it. So we ended up at the same university, majoring in the same thing. We were both going to be directors of Christian education, meaning we would do like children's ministry, youth ministry, adult education ministry.
Yeah, the school that we went to, it was a generalist program, meaning it really set you up to do ministry. We said birth to death.
Yeah.
Right. So all ages. Cradle to grave. Because most of the churches in the LCMS, if they call a DCE, that DCE is there for all of Christian education, all of discipleship purposes. So that's really what the school focused on teaching us. Yeah.
Okay. So, kind of moving us on, what do you think? I kind of shared what led me into ministry.
Yeah.
So what led you into ministry?
So,
if pastors are lame.
Yeah. So, really it was, I never wanted to do anything else in high school. I was the kid who knew what he was going to do. I was going to go into church work. I've never veered off of that since about 8th or 9th grade. And so for me, that really kind of set the stage for high school. The things that I did, like I played ice hockey and stuff, I wasn't doing it because I thought that was the next step. I was just really doing that stuff for fun.
Yeah.
Because I knew I was going into church ministry. So anyway, I get down to school. I do my first 2 years, freshman, sophomore year. And we had built some friendships and relationships, as you do in college normally. And spring break sophomore year, one of the guys in our friend group, he wasn't a really close friend, but he was within our circle. He was driving on a spring break trip with some of his friends, got in a terrible car accident, and he actually died. And so, like most young adults around that age, that really impacted me, and it really got me thinking about a lot of things, really got me praying about a lot of things. And, even through high school, even as I was like, no, I'm going to go study BDCE. I mean, my youth leader at the time, who was a volunteer, pastors, everybody was like, Brian, that's great. I still think you need to really consider something else. We really think you have this higher. Even our friend groups, they were
Yeah.
like, "You're gonna end up as a pastor. Like, just embrace that and move on." Well, that whole incident with our friend group over that, and then over the course of the summer, really got me praying and thinking. So I talked to my advisor, and really great guy, really great. We still have a really great relationship with him. Anyways, and I was like, okay, what do I need to do? And thankfully, at our school, all I had to do was add on the biblical languages, Hebrew and Greek. But I got to still go through our program, still got to graduate with our degree, so on and so forth. And so that's really where I made the shift to pastoral ministry, which meant for me I was going to have to go to seminary, study at seminary for 3 years on campus, 1 year of an internship vicarage. But that was really that turning point, is that sophomore year into junior year. Yeah.
Okay, so that's what led us both into ministry. So we studied.
It's been a wild ride ever since. Woo!
Okay, the episode is not over. Okay, so we let's see. We both graduated. I took an internship position, which is what you do to be a certified director of Christian education in our church body. So I had the degree. I needed to do a 1-year internship to get the certification. So I moved to Florida, did that. You went straight to seminary in St. Louis, Missouri.
Yep.
From undergrad. So
And I chose St. Louis because there are 2 seminary locations, and St. Louis was the less cold of the 2, because the other one was in Indiana. And so I was like, Missouri, Indiana, which one should I go to? Yeah.
So this isn't really a story about how we got together, but we were best friends in college. And
Oh, you're going to go there, huh?
no, I'm just briefly I'm going to tell people how we end up together. We were best friends in college, so post-college internship, seminary.
To the point that some professors thought we were dating
Okay,
at certain points, but we never were in college, for the record.
Moving on, we figure out that we have feelings for each other.
Nothing like being at a school full of guys to make you miss the women in your life, that's for sure.
Some figured it out sooner rather than later, okay?
Because some of us are less stubborn than others.
Okay, I'm not sure that
Hey,
that
you
is
wanted to go
true.
down this route. You wanted to go down this
I said
route.
briefly we were going to go over this. Whatever. I agreed to go on a date with him. Then I agreed to marry him shortly after that. And then we got married. And then we...
Which is maybe that is an episode we should do at some point.
Maybe. Anyway, moving on. At seminary, you go to seminary for...
You go
2
2
years.
years. The general route is you go your first 2 years. Your third year is a vicarage, where they send you to serve in a church. And then your fourth year, you come back for the last year of classes.
So we got married right after second year.
Correct.
The summer in between, you were going to get sent to your student
Northern
pastor
Illinois.
year. Yeah. So we got married and we moved off right away to Northern Illinois, the romantic city of Freeport, Illinois.
And our Freeport friends are listening up. We thoroughly enjoyed it.
Actually, we really loved it.
Yeah.
The whole year.
Yeah, we really did.
We loved it. There was
Got to sit through a couple blizzards.
Yeah.
It was
there
great.
was a lot of snow, but we did love it.
My shoulders were huge that year.
Anyway. You're just getting us so off track. We're trying to get into...
Okay.
I'm trying
what
to
do you want
transition into our approach to ministry.
Our approach to ministry.
No.
Okay.
Okay,
All
that's
right.
what I was...
Approach to ministry. Let's just launch there.
Okay, so...
This is what happens when we tell stories about
I
our life, by the way.
know. I know. And I knew that going into this episode, but... I love you. Okay.
All right. Approach to
Blah,
ministry.
blah, blah. You're a pastor.
Graduate, get sent to North Carolina. All right. So
we've been at 3 different congregations
correct.
now.
I've been serving for about 10 years.
Our faith story didn't stop like when we finished undergrad. Obviously we can both see ways that our faith has totally grown since joining ministry, getting into ministry.
Yep.
So what is our approach to ministry?
So
why do we do what we do?
Yeah, why do we do what we
We
do?
both felt called by God to go into ministry, right? And we both had people encouraging us to go into ministry, like validating that call.
Yes, and I think what I have experienced in conversations with peers in ministry, so on and so forth, is there are a couple different approaches to why a person does ministry or why they do the things that they do in ministry. But I think Victoria and I are pretty much on the same page around this, is I understand my role as pastor or spiritual leader of a community of disciples is not to be the one who knows all of the answers, but the one who walks alongside and serves and encourages, maybe does set the example for that community of disciples, ultimately to show what it means to follow Jesus, who is the lead of the community of disciples and leader of the church. And so I really see my job, that was a long way to say that, I really see my job as pastor to really model for others what does it mean to follow Jesus.
And when we first started out as a naive couple in ministry,
We were naive?
well, not me.
Turns out we were. Yes.
I had done a couple years in ministry
Yep.
before we got married. But it's very different. That we was a different role, I should say. I was doing children and youth ministry. And I would say that what we wanted to bring to ministry also was we didn't want to put ourselves on some sort of pedestal because you are a pastor and we are a pastor's family and I am a pastor's wife, because those are titles that we have been given, but we just never wanted it to seem like we were on some kind of pedestal where we weren't also real people with real things going on in our lives, struggling with sin, struggling with just the awesome and amazing grace that we're lavished on daily, and I think that we wanted people to understand that we struggle too, and part of that walking alongside people as disciples, we wanted to show our discipleship journey.
And so for me as a pastor, it is a title that's given, it's a role to serve in, but that role is really, again, to model what it means to follow Jesus. So that for me that means I do share a fair amount of our actual life together in my ministry setting, because I'm serving people who are husbands and dads and grandparents and co-workers and bosses and employees, and so I share that aspect of my life so that they also learn what it means to follow Jesus in that respect. I mean, that's one of the reasons we started this podcast, by the way, and just that reality of I do see the role of pastor in a community to be the leader in that community, right? To kind of say, hey guys, this is the direction I think God is taking us, but not in a get on board or get off kind of concept. Not in a this is my way or the highway kind of concept. I see that role of leadership in saying, I think this is where God is going, because he wants us to grow together in this, right? He wants us to be able to learn together. He wants us to surrender together to his will in our lives. And so for me, I really see that role as pastor of modeling that example, setting that example of what it means to follow Jesus, so that we get to do it together as a community of disciples.
Any church that we've been called to and done ministry in, we see them as an extension of our family. And I don't mean that in a cheesy way, but we normally are not living close to our family, or we don't live in the same town as grandparents or aunts and uncles, and so the church has to become our family. And there have been moments where we have needed our church body to lift us up and carry us and encourage us, because we've really gone through some hard stuff. But then there's other times where we need to teach or show how to do that, and that's how we view ministry. We are in it for the people God has called us to serve, and we very much view it as a 2-for-1
partnership.
Partnership.
I think we an important piece to that is we see ourselves as part of that body of disciples that's there, not a we fly in to fix things or to be the special examples, whatever. We very much see we're there, we're a part of this community, and these are the gifts that God desires to use out of us as part of this community.
Man, that was so nice the way you said that. I think I was kind of not saying it so eloquently, but we definitely don't think we have the answers to everything. We definitely don't think we're coming in to solve problems, but we're often where we are because God has called us to love and serve the people he has put in our lives.
And honestly, I mean, that's why, again, that's why we do this podcast, is because we have learned some things. And by the way, we didn't learn them because we did them right the first time. We learned them because people poured it into us.
Yeah.
And so we want to pass that on. Or, we believe that God has gifted us in certain ways, not for our pride and arrogance, but for the sake of the people that He's called us to serve. And so, we just did an episode on how to worship with your children and why that's important. And I mean, that's a lesson that we've learned along the path.
Yeah.
And you wrote that resource because people ask you about that, right? They ask you, how do you do that? And so we want to share what we've learned because we view it very much that we are part of the body of Christ. Yeah. And so what can we provide? What can you provide? And how do we together actually get to do this? I think is the exciting part about all of this.
And I think, our faith stories are clearly not over. They're a work in progress.
Certainly hope they're not over.
We've actually just been talking about how, the first couple episodes that we put out were on goals and how we do things. And maybe we have not been doing those things very well. Like me personally, I have not been getting up early to do my devotion.
Oh, yeah, me neither.
And so we try to encourage one another along the way. And that's what we always hope this podcast is, to encourage you in your faith.
Exactly right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you haven't done so already, be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube at The Average Disciple. Check out our website, theaveragedisciple.com. Sign up for the newsletter while you're there. And again, if you ever have questions or you want to share your story with us, you want to talk, have a conversation, chat about what is life like as an average disciple, don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can do so on our social media or via email.
Yep. Yeah. And this is actually just one of a 2-part series. So this time we talked about our faith story, how we grew up professionally, and how God called us into ministry. Mm-hmm. But next time, our next episode is going to be our faith story, Brian and Victoria, as husband and wife, as a mom and a dad, what that looks like, and how our faith has changed since getting married and having children.
I feel like there's going to be a lot of divergent conversations out of that one.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to keep you on track.
All right, catch us on the next episode.
Thanks for joining us.